You stop replying, you stop showing up, and suddenly the world around you doesn't know what to do. You think you're pulling away quietly, but in reality, you're disrupting a system that depended on your constant availability. People get anxious. They poke at you with passive aggression. They question your silence, not because they care, but because they lost access to what you gave so easily: your time, your energy, your emotional labor. Carl Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But the inverse is also true. Sometimes the way people react to your absence is the clearest reflection of what they took from your presence. You've been taught that being a good person means being accessible, answering quickly, soothing others, sacrificing your peace to keep things smooth. But the moment you pull back, the moment you stop giving what was never reciprocated, something fractures. Because your availability wasn't just convenient, it was expected. And expectations are just unspoken contracts. Contracts that drain you. The invisible role you've been playing. Most people don't realize they've become emotionally functional. You weren't chosen for your essence. You were chosen because you're easy to reach, reliable, predictable. You're the emotional buffer, the peacemaker, the one who stays calm while everyone else explodes. And the longer you play that role, the harder it is to escape. Because the moment you change, even slightly, people notice, and they don't like it. Guilt is the first reaction to freedom. The first thing you feel when you stop being available isn't peace, it's guilt. You feel guilty for the unread message, guilty for needing space, guilty for putting your phone on Do Not Disturb. But guilt doesn't always mean you've done something wrong. Sometimes it means you've stopped doing what was wrong for you. You're breaking a pattern, not a promise. And when people say you've changed, what they often mean is, you've stopped being who I needed you to be. Why they need you reacting? People rely on your reactions, your calming presence, your ability to fix, to soften, to make it okay. But that comfort comes at a cost. You don't just lose energy, you lose clarity. The more you react, the less you reflect. And without reflection, you become emotionally hijacked, not by your own chaos, but by everyone else's. Silence disrupts the script. When you stop reacting, people are forced to face themselves. And most of them aren't ready for that. Carl Jung described this as projection, the mind's way of dumping its shadow onto someone else. And if you're always available, you become the screen. But when you pull away, when you refuse to engage in the performance, the projection shatters. Now they're left with the thing they were running from, their own reflection. Stillness is not passive, it's protective. This isn't about ghosting or being cold or playing games. It's about withdrawing from a dynamic that never served you. Stillness isn't passive. It's how you reclaim your psychic energy. And when you sit in that silence long enough, you begin to hear something that was drowned out for years, yourself. You've gone quiet, and now they don't know what to do with you because they knew how to handle the version of you who always answered, who always fixed, who always smoothed things over, no matter how rough it got. But this new version, the one who pauses before replying or doesn't reply at all, this version is unsettling. And here's the uncomfortable truth. They were never responding to your personality. They were responding to your predictability. You were a function. Now you're a disruption, the collapse of the familiar pattern. When you stop reacting on command, people panic. They send longer messages, they over-explain, they provoke. Not because they care more, but because they've lost control of a dynamic that benefited them. Carl Jung believed that people often mistake reaction for connection. But connection without respect is just emotional dependency. And your silence breaks that illusion. You'll be called cold. That's a sign it's working. The labels will come quickly. You've changed. You're selfish. You don't care anymore. But look closely. That's not sadness. It's entitlement. They miss the version of you who was always available, not the version of you who's finally at peace. Don't confuse their discomfort with your wrongdoing. Their chaos is not your responsibility to fix. Your emotional labor was a gift, not a debt. Guilt tries to pull you back in, and just when you start to feel free, guilt knocks on the door. Maybe you were too harsh. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe you should have just replied. But guilt isn't always a signal that you've done something wrong. Sometimes it's just the echo of your old identity trying to survive, the caretaker, the fixer, the person who put themselves last to avoid being abandoned. Jung would say, the moment you resist your old self, it fights back. Not because it's right, but because it's familiar. You can't heal if you keep negotiating your boundaries with people who only loved you when you had none. This is the beginning of individuation, the Jungian process of becoming whole. Not liked, not agreeable, whole. You start to ask harder questions. questions. Who would I be if I wasn't reacting all the time? What would I do if guilt wasn't making my choices for me? What kind of relationships would I attract if I stopped proving I'm worth loving? That's the work. And it begins when you stop managing other people's comfort and start protecting your own. Absence reveals what presence never could. Carl Jung believed that everything you avoid will eventually become your fate. So if you've avoided silence, avoided stillness, avoided your own emotional truth, then let this be the first time you step into it, fully, unapologetically. Let your absence echo louder than your explanations ever could. Let people feel the distance. Let the silence speak, because the ones who truly saw you will find you again. And the ones who only saw what you could do for them will fade. That's not a loss, that's a clearing. You were never too much. You were just giving too much to the wrong people. You were never cold. You were just trying to protect the warmth that kept getting stolen. And you were never unavailable. You were just waiting for someone to deserve your attention. So here's the shift. You stop being available to everyone and become deeply available to yourself. And that changes everything. If this made you think differently or feel something you didn't expect, hit like and subscribe for more unsettling truths that bring you closer to yourself.